Hi, Sagittarius. Welcome to your Leo season reading, August 2024. It's gonna be fiery, and honestly, I don't know about this long hair thing. I've had short hair. I'm just kidding. It's just like long and hot. But it keeps warm in the winter. Anyway, all information to work with me one-on-one is below. Cards already popping out. We're gonna get into it. Patreon link for the extended is also below. That will be in the first link. Give it about 24 hours. This is already saying a lot, so we're gonna talk about it all. For some of you, it's about seeing the lines in Leo season. Leo season is drawing the lines. They're being very clear. We're gonna pull these out as well. It's you're cutting off some things. So for some of you, you're on one side, and for others of you, you're on the other side. This is the yang. This is the from being shaped and everything coming up to now exposing ourselves to our lines, where we define them, where we still don't know where we define them. This month is going to give us that opportunity. This Ace of Swords, Six of Pentacles, Queen of Wands, the Strength card is all about you standing your ground in places that you're now realizing where you've given out of, you know, the goodness of your heart, but comes back to charity. When you give from that place, and it's from a generous place, but it's from like, but if you really boil it down, it's almost pity. You know, there's mercy, there's pity behind it, and you know, just to take it that layer deep. So therefore, you may find those interactions coming towards you in this life, and now you're realizing where that balances out. And you're starting to wonder like and you're starting to understand where these lines need to be drawn, no matter how much they hurt. You know, where you're over giving, where you're not receiving enough, right? That balance, that balancing act there. And being very clear. And Mars is in Gemini, so you can try these things out. Venus is in Leo. Mercury just went into Virgo today. But aside from that, it's coming from a place of deep compassion. So we're going to do a whole nother thing on compassion. This month is the heart. It's the back. We get more into that in the extended. But the Strength card came out. So the Leo card, ruled by the sun, what's being exposed? Sagittarius risings. You will have Leo in the 9th. And that's your philosophy, right? So you may find that in Leo season, whether random or by the stars for for Sag risings, is that you may question things. You may want to learn. You may find that the summer is when you learn more about yourself, where maybe you even experiment more. You feel more adventurous. You may feel more playful. This time it's more serious. We're all there's a seriousness to this. There's power, there's control, but there's also compassion. Let me circle back to that. Compassion is understanding that what you're doing is out of love for yourself, because therefore you're teaching other people how to love you. And if you need to teach them in a new way because you've changed or circumstances have changed and you realize, and it's been maybe even hurting you, maybe even keeping you down. This is for those of you who people want to keep you where you are because they don't want to see you go farther, right? For others of you, it's learning and understanding how to provoke you, knowing how to provoke you. And instead of being provoked, you're taking action on, no, like, I'm not being provoked. This is just me telling you how it is. And I was, trying to do it in a more compassionate way, but now I gotta look and use that compassion more towards myself. And this could be with family. This can be something that has to do with, for those of you who are wondering about your worth, wondering about money, what's happening in that situation. I almost pulled this out, but it just fell out anyway. This fell out first. Heavy Leo energy. But you hear that music? It's not without a good time. Honestly, sometimes the medicine is having a good time, and I think you and Leos know that more than anyone. So this month is having a good time, but what's your version of that? That may have changed because of the compassion, because of drawing the line. You may find that you're suddenly exposed. All of a sudden, it's like you turn off one light, you close one door, another one opens right away. Because it's not about when it happened, it's how. It's the feeling. There's a more attachment to your safety and your security in areas of your life that are very nuanced. Mercury and Virgo. There's a nuance to this season because of the Virgo placements that will be coming in, and then the retrograde. This is your cue, your sign to have fun, and notice how sometimes that's when the money flows easier. That's when you feel easier to be fluid with how you feel. When you're in that flow, you're able to have more control over not just enjoying yourself and taking it too far, because you can do that, but then it's not fun for everyone after that. You know, there will be times of that. Fire signs know it best, but they know some people won't question them. So you're gaining a sense of control over this, but you're also letting go in the same way. So this month is very experiential, but it's needing your participation right out the gate. You may be being honest with yourself, and that doesn't mean that you're like, for some of you it is using your voice and it is speaking up, of course, but it's also about doing it because it's for your pleasure. There's a pleasure behind this. This is allowing you to feel pleasure, maybe even more in a greater sense. You're able to be there more. And because you find yourself in this place, all of a sudden, whether it's exactly how you wanted it or how you need it, what you've been looking towards, again, the sudden shift. I got this feeling about you guys, and there's an extremeness to this month for you. Take it or leave it. For some of you, it's very extreme to the extent of like, okay, this is bringing you deeper in a beautiful way and shedding light and giving you more joy, showing you more abundance, more love, more compassion, but there's a defining in the beginning, then all of a sudden things start to open up for you. Heart feels open. You feel more in control in a way that feels like sobering, but it's also you're having more fun at the same time. You're able to direct your energy. You don't feel as though you need to use your words as much because your energy is shifting. And this is something I learned through my experiences with especially grieving and being stuck in certain relational areas. We're not going to keep those out unless they fall out, but I just wanted to show you, is that once your energy shifts, and it could have had to do with a particular relationship. For some of you, it could be a Leo, particularly. But what happens when you decide that within yourself, and I'm sure we talked about this before, but this is something I've learned years ago, and I finally decided to like respect myself. I got all these opportunities to do that. And when I started to respect my energy more in a certain way, I noticed that I would stop seeing certain people as much. Just in my day-to-day, even going to the same places, I may go at a different time. All of a sudden my schedule changes. Whether it was at work, like I'd be working with the people I'm meant to because I, genuinely understand my energy. I understand it doesn't vibe with necessarily everyone, but it's learning that when you cut that off and you're dead serious about it, like you're so serious that like, it'll be way better for you and you'll be able to enjoy life more. That's that protection. But like, that's when you're just done and you're like, I don't want, and you can probably see this in other areas of your life, but this one in particular, everyone, whatever they're going through the season just feels more drastic and dramatic because we're all the main characters of our lives. So as we should be. A whole deck just fell out. So yeah, that tower moment is when you're finally at that point where you realize, oh, like this shit has to change and this is how it's gonna go. We might as well let it burn down. Like you're just like, okay, let's fucking do it. I'm good. And for some of you, if it is a relationship, romantic or friendship or at work. This looks like it could be anything. It just looks like a close relationship. There's plenty more to offer. There's more to come your way, a lot of opportunities. And it's also the opportunity to see clearly and not get distracted. And I think that's more than anything, is that fulfillment is what you desire. It's not just and maybe you didn't know, or you just really enjoy it. I don't think like you really judge yourself for how you live, especially if you're not setting, crazy expectations, or not trying to do, X, Y, and Z. But once you start to, you're going to aim for a place where you can find the freedom to be yourself, hopefully, because you definitely should, especially where your opinion matters, your voice matters, where you can be and have a drive. And sometimes we have to see these relationships as catalysts for this change. That you're being put in this spot, and everybody's I feel like you're being cornered, either from yourself and your internal, or from very intimate relationship, or by your own way of thinking. And because you're doing this, your whole way of thinking may also have to shift. So this causes a huge shift already in this area of your life, and you will have choices to make. You'll have to be very clear with yourself, and for a lot of you, you'll have to turn down these opportunities because you realize that they're a joke. And it's making it very abundantly clear that, and you're being very clear, very concise. You're just like, I just don't feel like any of that's worth it anymore. Like, you realize how much more your energy and time is precious, and where you give it away just to maybe fluff your ego, or because they fluff yours, or vice versa, because this is also about that, or pride is got mixed in. And you can take a look at David Hawkins' books if you want, but it's a beautiful way of kind of rationalizing the emotions and the journey that they go through to get to a higher vibration, if that's what you're looking for. And I would assume that if you're here, that's what you're looking for. But in order to get through to courage, you have to go from pride to anger to courage. So the anger, which is the difference between someone crossing your boundaries and you being triggered, is anger comes from someone crossing your boundaries. And the compassion you need to have is for yourself. And if you're doing that to someone else, then you're going to receive that in return. Like, no. And both ways, if you can, and I think you will by the end of the month, towards the end of the month, through the retrograde, you will see. And it may be worked out in this really interesting way. Perhaps some of you through work or romantic opportunities, and maybe dates or people that you find yourself talking to, you realize like, okay, like I'm not trying to mess around with all the fuzzy. It's not that you can't have a good time. It's just that right now you realize how precious your energy is. Like what energies are worth your time and what aren't. And it's okay. It's okay for the change, because you didn't know until now, because you didn't realize how attached you were until now. You didn't realize, because we have to go through these moments of how we've been taught to learn and how we've taught ourselves to learn, and then realize that it goes both. When you become aware, that's where the accountability needs to get taken in order for things to progress. It doesn't mean you're bad or you've done anything wrong. And you know what? Maybe you have done some crazy shit, but that's what makes you so powerful, is that you're willing to express and experiment and test the boundaries that can also get you into a lot of trouble, or have you, financially, or, even physically for some of you. But when you really are maturing or becoming more sophisticated with yourself, and allowing yourself to shift in a way that's good for you in your life, because you want better for you, or you want to experience, even it's just to experience a different way. I think that's like the best way for you guys, is like, this is about experiencing a different way of life. And if you're being, asked to put up or take really strong boundaries right in the gate of Leo season, then there's something really important about that, what that situation is, that relationship. It's not necessarily the person, but it's what's happening. And the person that you want to become is the person that responds and reacts to these. The way you treat yourself through this. What comes about, what comes from this. Maybe it's a good idea. Maybe it's you realizing that this is the last thing that needs to fall, and maybe you were just, it's okay to realize that you don't always have, no one's asking you to be bionic. And if you've asked that of yourself, and then gave that subconscious yet reassuring it consciously in your life, and now you're switching it, it's just dealing with the consequences, right? You're going to deal with reactions and vice versa, and deal with responses and have to go through all that. And you can see, you're so good at being able to see what happens. You know, you're of course a protector and that, but you want to see the drama through to see if it's actually real. You want to see it through to see if, like, okay, can we come back from this, or can you come back from this, or they come back from this? Can we clear this up? Can this be hashed out? Can the fire just do its thing for a moment? Right? And then another thing I wanted to, ask you guys about, really, and talk to you guys about, and it's coming up through here too, is, what do you do just to be inspired? Or what happens when you're bored? Sometimes for you, I really think that when you're bored, or you're like, there's lack of inspiration happening in your life, and it's okay, because you need to be bored in order to be inspired, just so you know. But it's, you've either been distracting yourself or numbing yourself, or both, and it just so happens that they're both doing that thing. And it's like you provoke something in order just to be inspired. Now, is it genius? Maybe. But is it stressful? Maybe. So I would just check in with your heart a little bit more this month. Your back, you just notice how you're being supported, how you're supporting yourself, and like the strength and ease, being easy with yourself. And if that looks like not extending your energy, and regardless of how anybody takes it, which is something you're pretty good at, but when you start being vulnerable and being honest with yourself, I think, you're only human to feel like, well, what if they don't like me, love me anymore, blah, blah, blah. You just have to notice the responses of people as you change. And if you guys are in the process together, or if they'd prefer to hold you back. And maybe they'll catch up, and maybe they won't, but this is not the time to kind of look back when you're running the bases. It's a time to run the bases, and when the retrograde comes, then you could take a look back, because you've already gotten to second or third or home or whatever. Choose your metaphor. But notice what you need to be inspired. Do you need to get into a fight, or find drama, or cause a war for some of you, just because you don't want to process something? This season, you can't get away with that. And if you do, you're not really getting away with that, because Virgo season will be probably even more difficult on you. It could leak into your work life. So anyone who has like personal stuff going on, you can tell, unless they're extremely good at managing, that it leaks into their work life, or some area where they can find control, and that can tend to be Virgos as well. So that's just the energy that we're entering. Not that it's necessarily has to be you. These are just really great insights and indicators. Caring for yourself properly is so important this month, and not just thinking about your mind, or if you want to have a good time, thinking about what pleasure is, what pleasure doesn't mean anymore. I would just be really straightforward with yourself the best that you can, and it's all coming to you in the end anyway, and you'll see what's been causing this, and you're trusting that, seeing this within yourself and understanding this doesn't mean you have to overly identify with it. It's something that sometimes anxiety says, that we can tend to throw things in the back, behind, away, and think that they're away just because we decide not to focus on them right now. Any of that stuff, that's why this is such a big wave, and or the situation is such a big wave, because it's encompassing a lot into one. It's realizing where it's held you back, and why when you think you're unattached, you're not. It's like this it's a cerebral thing, so now you're being exposed to it so that you can feel through it, so that it can seep into your nervous system, where there's less of a disconnect between the part of you that knows and the part of you that understands, if you catch my drift. I mean, aren't you excited to just like be sassy and have some fun? For those of you that are in partnership, it may deepen or go a totally other direction this month. But we'll get into the next part. I'll see you there. Just keep your head up, keep breathing, and yeah, all information is below. We'll see you next month.